USS Rowe, Dd-564, was a Fletcher-class destroyer of the United States Navy, named for Lieutenant John Rowe, who served with Lieutenant Stephen Decatur during the First Barbary War. Rowe was laid down December 7, 1942 by the Seattle-Tacoma Shipbuilding Company, Seattle, Washington, launched September 30, 1943, sponsored by Mrs. Louise Bradley Roberson, and commissioned March 13, 1944, Commander A.L. Young, Jr., in command. Following shakedown off San Diego, Rowe got underway for Pearl Harbor May 24, 1944. After 2 weeks of additional underway training in the Hawaiian Islands, she completed a round-trip escort run to Aniladoc, June 16 to July 2, and on August 3, 1944 sailed as flagship of destroyer Squadron 57, Duran 57, for Adak, Alaska, to report for duty with the 9th Fleet. She engaged in underway training there, and participated in 3 strikes against the Kuriles, Matsuwatu Island on November 21, 1944, Surabadiwan on January 3, 1945, and Kurabuzaki, Paramashiro Island on February 18, 1945. On April 18, Destroyer Division 113, the Div-113, was detached from the North Pacific Force and sailed for Pearl Harbor. Following repairs and training, Rowe sailed on May 11 for Ulithi with aircraft carrier Ticonderoga and her destroyer division. Arriving May 22, she joined the 5th Fleet for duty and a week later left Ulithi in convoy for Okinawa. Reaching the Ryukyus June 2, Rowe began radar picket duty. 15 days later, with the Div-113, she escorted the battleship Mississippi out of Higoshi anchorage and steamed for the Philippines, reaching San Pedro Bay, Leyte Gulf, June 20. Standing out of Leyte Gulf on July 1, Rowe rendezvoused with Task Force 38, TF-38, for screening and plane guard duties during attacks against the Japanese home islands, Honshu, Shikoku, and Hokkaido. The first strike was launched on July 10 against airfields and installations in the vicinity of Tokyo. Temporarily detached on July 23, 1945, Rowe participated in the bombardment of the town of Omura on Shishijima, then rejoined the carrier force. When the official Japanese instrument of surrender was signed in Tokyo Bay on September 2, 1945, Rowe was still steaming with Task Group 38.4, TG 38.4, in a patrol area east of Honshu Island, while the group's planes performed air observation missions over prisoner of war camps. Following a round-trip run to Aniladoc, Rowe steamed out of Tokyo Bay 18 November for Pearl Harbor and the United States. Touching at San Diego, California, Rowe transited the Panama Canal December 17 and reached Philadelphia, Pennsylvania December 23. Arriving Charleston, SC March 20, 1946, Rowe decommissioned January 31, 1947 and was berthed at Charleston as a unit of the Atlantic Reserve Fleet. After almost 5 years, on September 20, 1951, Rowe was brought out of mothballs and recommissioned October 5, 1951. Following shakedown in the Guantanamo Bay area, Rowe conducted shore bombardment exercises at Culebra Island, Puerto Rico, and returned to Norfolk, Virginia March 12, 1952 for local operations with the Div-322. In July she steamed to Halifax, returning to Charleston in late August for a yard availability. Following further training exercises in the Caribbean in early 1953, she made a midshipman cruise to Europe during the summer, and, during the fall, she undertook hunter-killer anti-submarine warfare exercises with Task Group 81.2 in the Caribbean. On April 20, 1954, Rowe, with Condorcet 32 embarked, got underway for duty in the Far East. Steaming via Panama, she reached Yokosuka, Japan, May 28, 1954. 3 days later she and Fechtelner got underway for Sasebo, thence to Pusan for patrol duties. Arriving the same day, they relieved Douglas H. Fox and Laffey on Korean patrol. On June 4, Rowe assisted crash boats and aircraft in a search for a United States Air Force plane that had crashed between Korea and Japan. 6 members of the plane's crew and passengers were rescued. Rowe then towed an Air Force seaplane, which was unable to take off in the rough seas, to port. On August 28, 1954, Rowe completed her tour with the 7th Fleet and prepared for the homeward leg of her round-the-world journey. Steaming via Suez and the Mediterranean, the division arrived in Norfolk October 28, 1954. The following months were spent in tender availability, upkeep, leave and local operations. On June 20, 1955, While conducting high-speed night carrier operations with Bennington, Rowe rescued a downed pilot. From July 18 through September 19, Rowe participated in various convex events and training exercises while operating with Commander, Anti-Submarine Warfare Forces, Atlantic Fleet. Rowe returned to Mediterranean duty on November 5 and served in the 6th Fleet, returning to Norfolk February 26, 1956. In June and July 1956, Rowe conducted another midshipman cruise, then resumed operations out of Norfolk. Attached to the 6th Fleet, October 21, 1957 to March 5, 1958, Rowe returned to European waters in June to call at ports in Sweden and Germany. Back in Norfolk in early August, she operated off the Atlantic and Gulf of Mexico coasts until decommissioned in November 1959 and berthed at Norfolk, where she remained until struck from the Navy list on December 1, 1974. Rowe earned 3 battle stars for World War II's service.